What's up, patrons? Ben and Chad here once again as the CME's Patreon Power Hour rolls on for April 11th, 2025. And Ben, we have plenty of UFC 314 stuff to get to on this episode as fairly eventful second half of fight week, I guess you could say here, leading into Saturday. First, though, before we get into any of that, you're fresh back from testifying in your government RICO trial, the organized crime trial that you've been hiding out in the witness protection program here in the last 13 years, doing the CME. How was it, man? How did it go? I saw you on Instagram and looking sharp.
I think I fucked up. Testifying against the cartel. I thought that they'd be cool with it. I thought they'd be like, hey, that's just how it is sometimes, all in the game. No, they seem mad.
Yeah.
They seem really mad as I was leaving the courtroom. No, I, of course, had to go down to the courtroom to serve as a witness in my friend's wedding. I'll say this. I myself got a courthouse marriage. For me, that was the only ceremony we did. She's doing this, to get married right away for insurance purposes and all that, and then they have a much larger celebration planned, for which I will be the officiant, Chad. Already, I'm concerned about how that one's going to go. We're going to have it out at Chico Hot Springs, and I made what I thought were reasonable requests, like, okay, if I'm going to be the officiant, can I come parachuting in on a pair of roller skates and just kind of hit the ground and then coast up to the altar? And they were like, no, there isn't space for that. And you're going to be at an outdoor gazebo. And I was like, well, does at least have a thing where I can come up from the floor like Triple H at WrestleMania? And they were like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so negotiations for that are ongoing. But this courthouse wedding, it seemed like maybe they don't see a ton of those down there at the Missoula County Courthouse. We were definitely the only one on the docket for that day. And it seemed like a nice break for the Justice of the Peace who performed the ceremony to get to do that instead of whatever else she has to do in a given work day. But she added her own flares. I'll say that. She added some of her own flares to the ceremony. Some of her own
JOP did?
Yeah. Some of her own marital advice and stuff. And I was just like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I frankly was not expecting that at all. I did catch the bouquet though.
They threw a bouquet out at the courthouse wedding?
There were 3 witnesses. She threw it up there to the 3 witnesses. And I'll tell you what, if you think you're going to catch the bouquet over me and you're not boxing out, you're not high pointing, you're not anticipating the arc like Dennis Rodman, you got no chance. You just got no chance. You didn't study the game. You weren't a student of the game, and you're not gonna get that bouquet over me. I'm snatching it like a rebound, and I'm taking it home with me, and that's all there is to it.
You don't have to do the courthouse ceremony in Montana. As long as you fill out the paperwork, you are married. Like, that's how it works. The ceremony is secondary.
Why are you being a dick about this?
I'm just saying, like, it's because that's what my wife and I did. We filled out the paperwork, but then we also had like a wedding that you attended.
Yeah.
It seems
I
a
vaguely
little
remember
odd.
that.
Me too, brother. It seems odd to do both. It seems odd to do like the courthouse ceremony.
Seems odd to celebrate your love as many times as you want. Is that what you're saying?
Is this Amy?
This is Amy.
Okay, and then what's the tall fella that she runs around with? Stu, that's right. Looks like he's in the Birds or something.
Her husband, Stu.
Yeah.
I got to do the thing where, Amy's ring gets given to one of the, I guess, bridesmaids, for lack of a better word, and I have Stu's ring. And then when they're like, present the rings, I got to do the Slash in the November Rain video where I first pretended like I lost it already, even though they only gave it to me like 4 minutes beforehand, and looked up, and then I got to hold up the hang loose sign with the ring sitting there on my pinky. I was disappointed that not more people appreciated the reference, to be honest with you.
I mean, these are people, they're slightly younger, right? Like
Amy and Stu are basically the same ages. They're just a little bit younger. I mean,
if you're a little bit younger, like even a couple years, you could have missed the November Rain video.
Well, then it'd be shit. Yeah, you could have missed Shakespeare. Why would you though? Is my question. I was just expecting that people were going to be like, November Rain, I get it, and it just, I had to explain it to them later on, and then it loses a lot of its luster. But then I tell you what, it was a jarring switch back into the MMA world. You kind of take the afternoon off, all the, during the press conference stuff. I come back to learn that Bryce Mitchell and Jean Silva did their shit at the press conference. And when Jean Silva barking like a dog, Bryce Mitchell thought he had come up with a sweet burn by being like, I've put a lot of dogs down before. I can do it again. And you're just like, brother, you just can't get through a single appearance. Like, I saw him. He was on one of those pre-show things with Laura Senko, and she was basically like, hey, people seem to hate you now. And he was like, I think people will forget all about that, and they'll realize that I'm a pretty likable guy, like, as time goes by. And then the very next clip I saw of him was at one of these like media events where some reporter was asking all the fighters, what would your nickname be if you had to choose a different nickname? And he went with White Power, from the sound of it. And the guy was like, because you throw power shots? And he was like, yeah. And he was just like, brother, you seem to think there will be a period after you have said dumb shit where people will have a chance to forget and then go back to thinking of you fondly as a lovable kook. But at this rate, there is no after period. There is just more dumb shit that you keep saying. You're not giving people a chance to forget.
I did not know about the White Power thing.
That sounds like what he's saying is White Power. And and the guy is even like trying to get him to explain it, because it's like, that's the first thing you came up with?
So I was going to say that the I've put a lot of dogs down in my day comment was not even the dumbest thing that Bryce Mitchell said at this press conference. I was going to say that the dumbest thing he said was when, in the wake of Jean Silva's comments that Bryce Mitchell would have to retire after this weekend due to brain damage, a reporter asked Bryce Mitchell about that comment. He was like, do you have any response to that comment? And Bryce Mitchell said, and I quote, I was born with brain damage, brother.
Wow. I mean,
I was going to say that was the dumbest thing that Bryce Mitchell said this week. Come to find out, White Power as your nickname, that's in a different stratosphere as any of the other stuff that he has said this week. That I am aware of. Let me just have that disclaimer.
How did that sound in his head, that I was born with brain damage? Like, did he think that they would be like, oh, this dude's so hard? Because it sounds like you're like, are you trying to say you had fetal alcohol syndrome? Like, what did you think you were choked by the umbilical cord? I don't know what you think you're saying, and yet it also feels too plausible based on some of the shit we have heard you say. I was thinking when he said the line about he's going to have to retire because of too much brain damage, I was going to be like, how will we know? How will we know when Bryce Mitchell has suffered too much brain damage? What would possibly be the sign?
There are also some quotes here where Bryce Mitchell says, they had this intense stare down at the weigh-in. He says, with my eyes, this is Bryce Mitchell, with my eyes, I conveyed the message that I'm ready to die and I'm ready to kill. And I said everything that I needed to in that face-off with my eyes alone. He couldn't possibly make me react. There's absolutely nothing that man can do to instill any fear in me. I have the Holy Spirit and the Lord, and fear is not an option. I'm fighting with the full force of the Lord inside my heart, the true Lord.
Okay. A reference to perhaps Jean Silva's alter ego being Lord, his nickname thing. They did seem to get into a back and forth about who better understood the teachings of Jesus Christ, and that's always a fun thing to talk about ahead of a televised cage fight. It seemed to me a little bit like, I can't tell to what extent Jean Silva is playing up this thing for the bit, because he senses opportunity, for one thing, that right now Bryce Mitchell has a lot of heat on him after the Hitler was a good guy based on my own research comments. And he realizes, okay, people are thinking about this guy one way or another now. I can go out there and beat him. Jean Silva's an unranked guy in the division right now, but is undefeated since coming to the UFC. He wins this one. It's a big one. It's one that has a lot of tension on it for kind of not purely fighting reasons, but it's a big opportunity for him. Bryce Mitchell, on the other hand, seems 100% to believe everything that's like when he's out here being like, ever since I signed to fight this man, I have been tortured by demons and sexy ladies in my dreams. He believes that. That is not him playing it up, him leaning into anything for the sake of the gimmick. That is him legitimately believing he is fighting the forces of Satan when he goes into UFC 314 against John Silva. And there does seem to be a little bit of it because John Silva's out here like trolling him with the globe and things like that, which when people control you just by holding up a globe, you have staked out a certain kind of territory in this sport.
I mean, that is pretty funny. John Silva is not, strictly speaking, having a normal one either, though, right? I don't want to just make it seem like Bryce Mitchell is out here saying crazy shit and Silva is not. He needed 2 tries on the scale today for the weigh-ins. He initially came in at 147, so 1 pound over the limit for a non-title fight, and then he came back, made weight. In the interim, after he had missed weight, here's his quote to Guilherme Cruz from MMA Fighting. He says, "It's not over yet. Don't you want a journey of suffering? I'll make weight. I'll make this fucking weight. Bryce Mitchell, I'll break you. It's not over. I'll be back and make weight too." Inaudible. "You motherfucker." Brazil, don't you want a story of suffering? He asks after he makes weight the second time. Ben, do you want a story of suffering?
That feels like the name of a heavy metal album, you know? Maybe we want to go on that journey, that suffering journey in this sport. I wrote a column today just about how weird it is, like this whole fight. Because if you looked at it on paper, where you're like, in one of these divisions, an unranked guy is going to fight the number 13 ranked guy. That's a fight night.
Yeah.
You know, that's a fight night bout. That's a just some fights kind of bout where it might end up. I mean, nobody's going into contendership based on this. You know, everybody's still far away from something very clear for the stakes. But because we love some weird ass shit in this sport, we love a narrative. We love some kind of stakes. The stranger and more unique the stakes are, the better for us. And so you get something like this, and now we're invested. And I was just like, imagine if you were at a watch party, or imagine you're at an actual party and you had to leave because you want to get home in time to catch the main card because you want to see this fight. And you're trying to explain to somebody why this one is important for you to catch, and they don't follow this sport. And you're like, oh, well, so there's one guy who's like a flat earther, doesn't quite believe in gravity, said a bunch of shit about how he thought Hitler was basically right. Anyway, he's fighting this other dude who's barking like a dog at him and promised a story of suffering and promised to leave him with so much brain damage he would have to retire. So you understand, of course, why I got to get going, why I got to hit the road in time to beat the traffic and get home and see it. Like, you'd sound like an insane person. You'd sound absolutely fucking crazy. And that's just a Saturday night in the MMA bubble, man.
Not only that, but I believe we also need to touch on the reality here that John Silva and Bryce Mitchell was not the most contentious interaction
No.
at the pre-UFC 314 fight festivities. The most contentious, potentially explosive interaction was between Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez, who pointedly are not fighting on Saturday. They're both
not fighting each other on Saturday.
Yeah, they both have different opponents for Saturday night, but they had to be there. They had a lengthy exchange where they had to be separated by security. And then it's one of those where if you're watching the highlights on social media, you've seen this before, right? Where you're watching it and you're like, well, this has got to be about over. And then you move the cursor and the video is like not even quite half done. And you're just like, what the fuck else happens? That happened to me a week or two ago when I watched that video of people fighting at Disneyland. Have you seen that one?
No.
The 2 couples fighting at Disneyland. Fucking shit goes on for like 8 minutes. Like every 30 seconds, I was like, this shit has to be almost over. Where is Disneyland security in all of this? But no, it just goes on and on. So
how are you going to not send me that video? How are you going to watch a video like that and not be like, you know who would enjoy seeing this? My friend Ben Folks.
I saw it on Facebook. So I wasn't totally sure how you would receive it. So, but But I mean, I can look it up again for sure and send it to you. So this interaction between Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopez, I had to go to the timeline of Rodrigo Del Campo, our guy. It's gonna
that's who you can count on.
Yeah. So for all of your Spanish speaking MMA happenings, here you've got Rodrigo Del Campo rolling in and giving us sort of a play-by-play here. I guess there is a beef, a long-standing beef between Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopez that revolves around the possibility that Diego Lopez and his team at one time, quote unquote, jumped Yair Rodriguez's friend Marco Beltran, who himself is a former UFC fighter, and maybe assaulted him in some fashion. So Yair Rodriguez had said shit about Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez gets asked about it at the press conference. They kind of start going back and forth. Then Yair Rodriguez calls Diego Lopez a name. I don't know if I should say it. I think I can say it. Calls him a culon. That's okay. My Spanish pronunciation, probably not great. So I was like, all right, what does that mean? Because that's the word. He says that word, and that's when Diego Lopez, up there in his cowboy hat and his velour jacket, is like, he's getting up. He's getting out his seat at that point. Once you call him that word, he's not going to sit there and take that. So here's what I did is I recorded their Spanish back and forth, and then I used Google Translate to tell me what they were saying.
Modern solutions for modern problems.
It seems like, well, the first thing that happened was that Google told me that culon loosely translates as bubble butt or someone who has a big ass, but that it can be employed to mean something slightly more vulgar than that. Then I saw a transcription of this back and forth that used the word asshole to describe what Yair Rodriguez called Diego Lopez. Then I saw Rodrigo Del Campo, who I'm going to take as the authority here, used the word pussy. So I think we can take from this that it is an insult that refers to something in the pelvic region and has a meaning. It might be one of these things that doesn't have an exact translation in English, but that means
connotative.
It's connotative and it means something really bad.
Okay.
And that is why Diego Lopez, in his velour jacket, gets up and starts going. Oh, by the way, Yair Rodriguez came straight to the press conference from Dan Flash's. Do you see what this motherfucker was wearing? This guy looked like he sent his team to Spencer's to get him the shirt that he was going to wear to the press conference. But they got into a lengthy dispute on the stage over this.
You know who I always feel bad for in those situations are the actual opponents for each guy, because they got to sit there and just be like, what the hell, man? Is he not worried? Is he not? He didn't feel like he needs to focus on me. I'm fighting this dude in just a couple days' time. Like he's going to get it into it with this other guy. Like I'm right here. And I just got to sit quietly and wait for my turn. Like that's always an awkward thing, I think. But you know what? It's not strategically, and I'm not saying he did this strategically, but for Yair Rodriguez, if you're looking at a situation at featherweight where, hey, man, you never know what happens in this fight. If Diego Lopez goes out there and wins it, all bets are off at featherweight at that point. The shit is wide open. And you might be well suited for a title shot if you had just used that opportunity to highlight a beef between you and the dude who might end up as champion. Like you could very well be the guy that they pick and they go, all right, that one has a lot of heat behind it. You know, especially if we wanted to do it one of these fights in Mexico, some shit like that. Like that might be a kind of savvy move to pick a fight with a dude who could wake up on Sunday morning as the new champ.
To their credit, speaking of at least one guy's opponent, gentlemen of a certain age, Michael Chandler and Alexander Volkanovski are sitting next to each other at this press conference. They're loving it. They are having the time of their lives while Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez are sticking their fingers in each other's faces and shouting at each other through the arms of UFC security. These guys are just yucking it up if you want to go back and watch the video. This thing goes on so long. They try to keep asking questions. Like they try to move on with the press conference. Some poor schmuck reporter gets like halfway into a question. She's like, Michael, how was your training camp leading up to? And then Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez are jumping out of their seats screaming at each other again. That's how long they went on.
That is, I did catch the part where somebody was just trying to ask, like, just, trying to go in there and lob one of these press conference softballs for him. And it's like, no, shouting times are not over. Let's pause to continue yelling at each other angrily from a few feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question I wanted to put to you headed into this one. Is this a kind of a do or die fight for Alex Volkanovski?
Yeah.
When you think about his age, he's coming off to 2 knockout losses. Now, we talked about this, that it seems like if you looked at it on paper and you're like, okay, the guy's on the wrong side of 35, 2 knockout losses. But in context, we know what to make of those. We go, hey, one, you took a fight up a weight class on extremely short notice. Probably a bad idea, but you did it for the money. And we can't really blame you for that. You got knocked out, though, and then you turned right around and got back into training camp, which we all said was a bad idea and ended up being a bad idea. You got knocked out again. Then you finally did the thing we told you to do, which is take some time off, let the brain heal, come back refreshed a year later with a golden opportunity. The circumstances really worked out in your favor to go out here and maybe get, another reign with the featherweight title. But if you lose it, especially if you get knocked out again, then you'd have to start to wonder about the chin, if your durability is just gone. Plus, then you're really far from a title shot. And he doesn't seem exactly the kind of guy who would be content just to hang around for some fights.
Yeah.
And I wondered if he were to lose this, especially if he were to get knocked out, could that be the last we see of Alex Volkanovski?
I'm going to say yes, it is a do or die opportunity for Volkanovski for most of the reasons that you explained, with one caveat, right? Like if he loses this one, especially if he loses to a guy like Diego Lopez, who is kind of a surprise. We talked about this week already. He's like kind of a surprise elite featherweight. We thought at first, fun guy, going to put on exciting fights, cool haircut. That's about it. For Diego Lopez to fight his way into this championship opportunity is a surprise, but I don't think, at least in my mind, that we have quite granted him like elite 145-pound status yet, right? The other guys that Volkanovski has lost to are the best. If he loses to Diego Lopez, it either means that Diego Lopez is one of the best, or perhaps that Alexander Volkanovski is a step back from where he used to be, that he has lost a step. And I can tell you which conclusion most people will jump to.
Yeah.
The one that Alexander Volkanovski is not as good as he used to be anymore. I will say as the caveat, though, I think it depends how long Alexander Volkanovski would be willing to stick around, right? You said he's the kind of guy who seems like he could go do something else. He has put words to this idea that the year that he had to take off after the 2 knockout losses was very good for him. He learned about himself. Maybe he started to think about some other avenues outside of fighting. Previous to that, the things he had said in public made it sound like this dude was doing fighting and that's it, nothing else. So it depends, I think, on what side of that argument Alexander Volkanovski ultimately comes down. Because if he, if you look at these featherweight rankings, especially with Ilia Topuria now pieced out to lightweight, this is an aging group, man.
Yeah.
Volkanovski's getting up there. Holloway is getting up there. Yair Rodriguez is not exactly a spring chicken. Brian Ortega is getting up there. Aljamain Sterling is here on a mission of desperation. Josh Emmett is not a young guy. This is not a young group here. And if Volkanovski were to stick around as the division starts to move toward, let's say, the Diego Lopez, like Arnold Allen, Movsar, Ivolev kind of guys, he could be one of these guys who's like perennially one win away from a title shot just because of his status and his profile in the division. Whether or not he would want to do that, I lean toward no. I think like you do. So I do think this is probably a do or die opportunity for him. And for Diego Lopez, I'm not going to say do or die, but as I said, we didn't expect him to get here. So if he loses to Volkanovski on Saturday, I think that would, it would make people think like, oh, this guy, he's good, but he's not that good. And he would have some work cut out for him before he got back into a title shot again.
Yeah, at least he's not that good. Yeah. Speaking, though, of aging guys in this weight class, Patricio Pitbull has entered the chat.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
And here's one. I was talking about this a little bit with the big homie Chuck Mindenhall when we were doing the crack earlier today. Unfortunately, Pizza Carroll couldn't make it, fell down an open manhole.
Pizza Carroll couldn't make it to the crack?
Was unfortunately carried away by a murder of crows. That's what you call it, right? When there's a bunch of crows.
Yeah.
Just picked him up right off the street in Dublin, carried him off.
Is it still the crack without Pizza?
It's a good question. Right now, I think most people are just concerned with the effort to recover his body.
Yeah.
But
get him back from El Salvador.
Yeah. The thing we were talking about is Patricio Pitbull had such a great career in Bellator. Seemed like he lived many lives over there in Bellator. And now he's coming to the UFC with the question mark hanging over his head. Is it too late? Is it too late to do anything in the UFC? And there's a part of me that feels like it would just be unjust if he came over here at this point and, I think, what is he, 37, something around there, and has been in some wars. And if he came over and he just was, he's not getting easy fights. They're throwing him right against Yair Rodriguez. He did. Here's another savvy veteran move. Patricio Pitbull going to make the championship weight just in case.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's seen how this sport can go. He's not going to be like, all right, I just got to make 146. He's going to make 145 just in case somebody slips on a banana peel and he can get called up. But you know how it would go. If he showed up here, if he got beat, people would be like, LOL, Bellator sucked. Nobody, their titles and shit don't mean anything. If it happened in Bellator, they come over to the UFC and you find out that there's levels to this shit, all this kind of stuff. When really the most likely explanation would be like, if he had come over 4 years ago, maybe he would have been champ. Maybe it would have been a different story. And I would hate to kind of see that stain put on him at this point. But also, it's tough to do, even after all those time in Bellator, to come over, be in the UFC, be in the big show, come in there against a guy like Yair Rodriguez, and you kind of got to win it.
Yeah, and it's one of these like kind of old school feeling UFC matchups where they're like, we're not going to give this guy a soft landing, right? We're not going to give this guy an entryway fight, a gateway fight to get him into this division, which I don't know. In some ways that makes sense just because of the age, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have a time to fuck around and give Patricio Pitbull like a softball to get him started in the UFC. You gotta know where he stands right away. And in that regard, I feel like Yair Rodriguez is a really good opponent for him. And this will probably be like a fun fight, right? These guys both going to go out there and swang them things. So they'll put on a good one for the fans. And it's, whoever wins, probably have some pre-made storylines for them moving forward, especially Rodriguez with Diego Lopez. And, if you told me that if Patricio Pitbull wins and he was either going to fight for the title or he was going to fight the loser of the main event, either way, yeah, hell, sign me up. I think that sounds awesome.
Well, and lastly, I guess before we move on, we're talking about guys coming over from Bellator, perhaps too late. It conjures up the specter of Michael Chandler versus Patrick Angus Pimblett.
Yeah.
Not his real. His middle name is Mark, which I find very disappointing.
Mark?
Yeah.
That's not a Scouser's middle name.
I know. What the hell is that? But, this is one that I think is really interesting just because it's like, we're doing the thing of, hey, well, let's find out who the fuck you actually are at this point in your careers and lives with both of these guys, just in kind of different ways. Because it's like, Michael Chandler, if you can't beat Paddy Pimblett, then that's it, buddy. Like the time of you being somebody in the lightweight division is kind of over then. Right now, he can say, like, hey, I might have a losing record in the UFC's lightweight division, but the only lightweights I lost to were all the best lightweights of recent memory. And all the guys who weren't that, I beat them and beat them pretty good. And the other side of it for Paddy Pimblett is we were like, okay, you had some fights that clearly the UFC put you in there because they wanted you to win. You were popular. You had a head of steam coming into the organization. Even in some of those fights, you almost managed to fuck it up and lose, and at times looked kind of bad. But you still haven't lost in the UFC. And now we're going to put you in against a guy who is a legit guy. Are you good enough to beat him, or were you only good enough to beat the guys who are there to lose?
Yeah.
And either for both these guys, they're at a precipice, at a turning point, Chad.
Yeah. Michael Chandler is the most do or die guy on this card. Like, we can say all we want to about Alexander Volkanovski, but if Michael Chandler doesn't win this one, it's a garbage pail for him. That's where his next fight will be, at the bottom of the garbage pail, the dustbin.
Fighting to climb out of it is what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. So I agree with you, and he doesn't have a lot of time left either, probably. So you got to make it.
Slight underdog in this one is Michael Chandler. So,
damn, man, tough times at the Chandler house. All right, well, we gotta get going here. $20 we never want to see again. This is not easy for me to say, but things did not go great for you boy again this week. I thought I had it made, calling in a little pinch hit from TRT Tom. Our bets did not go well.
He played pretty reckless with your money, didn't he?
He did. I messaged. Well, he messaged me first with the picks to say it's way harder when you have to do the odds than when you just have to pick the winners of the fight. I said, yeah, I know, that's kind of how it works.
When you think about return on investment.
Yeah, and then he sent me the picks, and I sent him back like, you gambled this $20 like it does not belong to you, and I respect that. So we lost them all but one. We had Torres Finney to win by KO. We lost that one. We had Josh Emmett by first round KO. We lost that one. We had Gerald Mearshart by submission. We lost that one. The only one we won was Lerone Murphy by decision. That was a $5 bet that paid out $9.54. So I came up again with a deficit of $10.46 for the week. I came into things at negative 34.30. I enter this week at negative 44.76.
Okay. Things, well, I cannot sit here and say things went well for you, boy. That would be a lie. I would be straight up lying to you. I came real close to hitting my Drake picks, just missed one of them. But it was a goddamn parlay. That's how they get you. So lost that one. I did win my bet on the main event last week to end in unanimous decision. So $5 won me $10.75 there. For the first time I lost a bet on PSG, I had them by I took the points minus 2.5. I believe they won 1-0. A low offensive output for them, so I lost that one. But I do have $5 still in play on them to win the Champions League, and I think they did win by a wide margin the first leg of their, I don't know if we're in the quarterfinals or round of 16 where we are, but they played Aston Villa and seemed like they cruised in the first leg. So that $5 still in play, plus the $2 I have on the Yankees to win the World Series that I'll get to talk about for months and months now. $7 still in play, but I did end the week down $9.25. I believe that if my math is correct, that brings me to minus $11.73 with $7 still in play.
I think we might just have to have a gentleman's agreement that you will not put any more money still in play, because it's getting ridiculous.
I don't not agree to that at all.
It's getting ridiculous.
I'm going to do what I feel like I need to do.
Let's move on to this week's bets. I still have Connor Benn, by the way, and $3 on the Yankees to win the World Series, both still in play. Let's move on to this week. Ben, how many bets do you have?
I have 5.
I have 10 bets.
What the fuck are you doing?
I just do that shit to get you mad.
Do we have time to kill? Do you feel that we were worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about on this episode? So you're like, let me make 10 $2 bets?
No, I'm going to give you my first 5 right now.
All right.
Because this is Chad's big time Major League Baseball bets. You ready for them?
Sure.
You can give me the Dodgers over the Cubs tonight. That's minus 192. A $1 bet pays out $1.52. You can give me the Royals over the Guardians. That's plus 110. A $1 bet pays out $2.10. You can give me the Giants over the Yankees. That's plus 110. A $1 bet pays out $2.50. You can give me Baltimore over the Blue Jays. That's minus 130. A $1 bet pays out $1.76. And Ben, you can give me rookie sensation Athletics first baseman Tyler Soderstrom to hit a home run tonight. Plus 475, a $1 bet pays out $5.75. I would like to say I'm sorry to Michael Westifer, who's going to have to write all those down and track those bets, although it is a little bit of tit for tat, which we'll find out about in a minute. But those are Chad's big time Major League Baseball bets.
Here's my question. Why? Why?
What if I win them all? What if I win them all, brother?
Yeah, okay.
What if the new Babe Ruth, Tyler Soderstrom, goes yard again tonight? Also, can you tell he's on my fantasy team? Because he is.
It's just curious to me that you roll into UFC 314 fight week, a time when there are actually fights that we know and care about, people we know and care about, a lot of opportunities to spread around your MMA betting dollar. And that's the week you choose to make a whole bunch of Major League Baseball bets.
I'm here to live, man. I'm here to have fun.
Okay, that's debatable. All right. Is it my turn to begin with my bets now that you've made us go through a whole fucking season's worth of baseball bets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Give me one.
All right. I'll give you one. Listen, you're not going to make Jim fucking Miller a 6-1 underdog against this snot-nosed kid Chase Hooper and not have me take a flyer on it.
Yeah.
Fucking Jim Miller roll up in here, looks like, a fight on somebody's front lawn on Thanksgiving after too much wine. Come on. I gotta take Jim Miller in this. I had to talk myself out of taking Jim Miller by submission, which is like plus 1,300. I was like, I don't know, maybe he doesn't get that done, but plus 600. I don't want to get greedy. I'm just gonna take that. $3 down on Jim fucking Miller to make 21. No disrespect to Chase Hooper. No disrespect whatsoever. I respect your game, Chase Hooper. I respect that you're 25 and you're 16. I respect the time I saw you on a flight after a UFC fight card and you had a bunch of bruises on your face and the person sitting next to you was trying to ask what you do for a living and you were telling them that you're a pro fighter and they clearly did not believe you. I respect all of it, but I still, as a gentleman of a certain age myself, I gotta take the underdog line on Jim Miller here.
I knew we had a Jim Miller bet coming from you. I was just wondering if it was going to be Jim Miller by submission. So I'm glad that you were able to restrain yourself a little bit. I just said I was sorry to Michael Westifer that he was going to have to write down and track my 5 big-time Major League Baseball bets for the day. But I did give him a little something because he hit me up to ask if he could submit a golf bet this week. And I said, sure, give me your pick. So this week we have Chad and Michael's big time pro golf bet. I am rolling out Scotty Scheffler to win the Masters. That's a $2.50 bet plus 220 would pay out $8.12.
Plus 220. Is he the favorite to win the Masters?
I believe he is the favorite by a wide margin, but this is the guy Michael said is probably going to win. This is the guy he wanted to go with. The Masters is ongoing right now as we speak, but seems like Scotty's doing pretty well from what I could see on Twitter right as we started recording this. So feeling okay about that.
Okay. Well, Chad, I'm not going to get through a single one of these without dipping my toe in the parlay waters, which have often been poisoned to me. But you know what? Give me Yair and give me Jean Silva. The two of them together, plus 116 odds, $5 to make 1083.
I have the exact same bet. Yair Rodriguez plus Jean Silva. I got it at plus 121. So my $5 bet will pay out $11.06.
Fuck you. Think you're better than me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not better than me.
I guess I got on the bets earlier or later.
All right, here's one that I don't feel great about, but am nonetheless doing just because I could kind of see it happening. Give me Muscle Milk Mike. Give me Mikey Chandler via KO, TKO, or DQ plus 250, 3 bones to make 1050.
Wow. I have a straight bet on Michael Chandler to beat Patty Pimblett plus 120. So a $2.50 bet would pay out $5.50.
Okay.
But I mean, KO. If he's gonna win, I could be a decision, I guess, but I don't hate your method of victory bet there. That's what I'm saying.
It just seems like we know Patty Pimblett has been hittable when he has to stand there and trade with you. Michael Chandler will throw those bombs.
Yes, he will.
I don't think he's gonna hold back out of fear of Patty Pimblett's takedowns or anything. I could just see it. I could see him rocking Patty and putting him away with strikes. Main event time. Just give me Volk.
I gotta say my bets, right?
Oh,
Oh no, you did. You're right. You got Volkanovski straight up to win.
Straight up, minus 145 odds, $5 to make 845.
Okay, is that your last bet?
No, I got one more. That's kind of weird.
Okay, I'll give you both mine. I got two left. I got Chase Hooper and Sean Woodson as a parlay, minus 135. A $3.50 bet pays out $6.11. My final bet, Ben Folks, you can give me Diego Lopez by submission.
What?
Diego Lopez by submission plus 550. A $1.50 bet would pay out $9.75.
Man, I'm kind of surprised that the odds aren't higher for that one.
This does seem like I didn't get great odds, but maybe that's because the odds makers are like, he could catch him. He could catch him.
How do you see that unfolding?
Big strike.
Okay.
Bang. Volkanovski goes down. We get into a grappling situation. Catches the choke. Tap out victory.
Okay. Like he's reaching for a takedown out of desperation, gets caught in the gilly. Something like that.
Yeah, it could be a thing where like you flatten the guy, you jump on him, he sort of recovers, but you're involved in a scramble type situation, and you latch something on there.
All right, my last one. You know what I like about going over there to Bet MGM is that they give you the specials. They just give you, a lot of weird shit, like event props and things like that. For instance, how many subs do you think there will be on the main card, Chad? How many fights will end in submission?
Well, at least one, according to my bets.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree. It will be 0. 0 submissions on the main card, plus 275 odds on that. $4. Gets me 15.
That's not a terrible bet, right? Because you're not getting one in Krylov versus Reyes, right? If Bryce Mitchell was to win, he might snatch something up. Probably not in Yair Rodriguez and Patricio Pitbull, I would think. Probably not in Chandler versus Pimblett, although if the Padster comes through.
Yeah, I think he has one submission loss. So
yeah. And then obviously I picked one for Lopez versus Volkanovski, but that's a bit of a long shot. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring the music in. We will get started with co-main event podcast, Patreon, Power Hour, Power Rankings. This week, Ben, we are counting them down from 8 to 1. The most powerful happenings in the world of mixed martial arts. Number 8 this week.
We had to trim a couple off just so you could have time for all your Major League Baseball bets.
Yeah, I had to do 5 big-time Major League Baseball bets. So, we came up with 8 this week. Number 8 this week, Ben, Conor McGregor is out here basically saying he might call her while he's in town. But in this situation, her is obviously Michael Chandler. McGregor has posted a Twitter video, an Instagram video of himself working the pads, it appears like on the grass next to a tennis court. Like he is at some kind of probably like gated communities, public common area.
Okay.
Working the mitts while some people are playing tennis in the background. He just says, I am interested in the Chandler Pimblett fight this weekend.
Are you?
That is the only thing he said about it. You son of a bitch, Conor McGregor.
You know what? I'd say this, like, I've been in this situation before where I think, is this woman I know, is she expecting maybe a happy birthday text, even though we haven't talked in a while? Maybe she is. And then I think to myself, you know what the kindest thing you could do for the woman is to leave her alone. Just leave her alone. Because she would answer that birthday text, but you also know it wouldn't be good for her in the long run. Leave her alone. That's what I would say to Conor McGregor with regards to Michael Chandler here.
Number 7 this week, Ben. Ha 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 ha. LOL. GFL cancels its first 2 scheduled events.
Okay. Wow.
They had them set for May 24th and 25th in Los Angeles. And this week, the California State Athletic Commission and Andy Foster confirmed that both events scheduled to take place at Shrine Auditorium have been canceled. I think it was Ariel Helwani who tweeted that there are now doubts about whether or not the GFL will put on a show.
Yeah.
Now there's doubts.
I mean, didn't we, when we first heard about this thing and people were asking, what do you think of the GFL? What do you think its chances for success are? I was like, I'll let you know when I see a single event, when I see one event that they have put on. And so far, the odds that they will make it even that far have just gotten worse. And the explanation here was that their big investor didn't come through, didn't meet their April obligations in terms of coming up with the money.
What a surprise.
Which, man, this sounds like some shit that you get into with like a dude who keeps rubbing his nose at the local watering hole and keeps telling you about this can't miss investment opportunity he has and wants you to get in on it. And then when you're like, hey, so what's happening with that? He's like, okay, so our major investor didn't come through. But don't worry, I got other fish on the line. This is going to work out, man. It's a little bit of a roadblock, but we're going to figure our way out. It's just a delay. I gotta run up to Calgary for a couple months and talk to some people there. I'll be back June, July at the latest, and then we can get moving on this thing. And you go, all right, I'm never seeing that dude again.
This analogy seems frighteningly believable given that you hang out down at the TNC a lot.
A lot of exciting investment opportunities one could be offered if you just sit around the TNC long enough.
I know I'm being incredibly naive here, but would it be too much to get the money before you start reserving the Shrine Auditorium? Would that be
before you start telling a bunch of especially well-known MMA fighters that you're signing them to big money contracts? Some of these people got out of other contracts to come over here and sign.
Speaking of which, number 6 this weekend, Ben, Tony Ferguson is still hanging in there with the GFL. Dylan Dennis is frustrated on behalf of all the people who support him.
Both of them.
Paige Van Zant has posted on her Instagram that she is hashtag a free agent, which I'm pretty sure is ironclad and legally binding.
Well, I'll say this for the Paige Van Zant part. The Darren Owens, the founder and commissioner of the GFL, did say that anybody who wanted a release could get one. So maybe that's what Paige Van Zant is operating on. Tony Ferguson's still hanging in there with the GFL. Well, yeah, what else are you going to do? You know, it's not like he was choosing between his many, many suitors at this point in his MMA career. The Dylan Dennis one, though, was the funniest to me. Because he's like, I'm not mad because of me. I'm mad because of all the Dylananiacs out there, all the Dennis heads who are just salivating to see me compete, and now they won't get that opportunity. You know, sick little kids in the hospital were like, I'm the only thing keeping me going is the chance to see Dylan Dennis fight. How am I going to find the heart to get through this next round of chemo if I don't have a Dylan Dennis GFL fight at the end of it to look forward to?
I wanted to stay as active as possible for myself and for everyone who supports me in 2025, said Dylan Dennis. Hey,
can we get a head count on those people just so we know what
silver lining for Dylan Dennis is that the promoter of Misfits Boxing replied to this tweet to say, "You've had some bad luck. You're fighting soon, Dennis."
Okay.
So there's still opportunities out there for him. It would appear.
So what you're telling me is God never closes the door to a trailer without also smashing open a window with a thrown trash can.
Can I read you Tony Ferguson's tweet?
Please do.
I know shit changed suddenly, but that doesn't mean I stop working towards Mythica status MFers 100 emoji.
What? I'm sorry. I got lost at the end.
Mythica status MFers 100 emoji.
What? How is Mythica spelled?
Capital MYTHICA, capital STATUS. Mythica status.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to him.
This fight/season will happen one way or another. Handshake emoji. There's no way that moose emoji, Dylan Dennis is a better athlete, capital A, than me. Let's dance, buddy. Will prove it once. I'm not going to click the show more button.
That's a choice you're making for yourself, and I respect it. Sometimes you gotta prioritize yourself.
I'm gonna leave it there. Self-care. That's what that is. Number 5 this week, Ben. Aaron Pico is officially in the UFC. How do you like them apples? We've been saying for a while it was going to happen. Here he is talking to MMA Fighting. It's the biggest organization in the world, and I don't see anybody stopping them, to be honest with you. It's just the highest level. Let's call it what it is. I'm sure there's guys in other organizations that can compete and win titles, but unless you're a UFC champion, you don't have that respect. Why do you think Patricio Pitbull wants to go to the UFC so bad? So here we go. Aaron Pico coming.
Here we go. I mean, Aaron Pico's still just 28 years old.
That's insane. I was going to say he was at least like 32.
I mean, we started hearing about him when he was like 19, right?
I guess.
So, yeah.
28. Jeez, that kind of makes it seem like Aaron Pico. Like, I know that we're dealing with like it's wear and tear on the tires type situation, right? You start earlier, you wear out earlier, et cetera, et cetera. But that kind of makes it seem like it's at least possible Aaron Pico has like not even started yet, kind of, right?
Yeah.
28 is like, I'm not going to say young, but like not old to come into the UFC. Like you see lots of people come into the UFC when they are older than 28. So let's see where this goes, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I mean, he could show up on the Contender Series and he would not have yet aged into the bracket where Dana White says we're not looking at fighters at your age, even though it doesn't explain why he invited you to come there in the first place.
Number 4 this week, Ben. Can we please stop with the fucking fans react posts, please? Yeah. I get it, but that shit is lazy. I say this because the first article that I saw about Aaron Pico joining the UFC was on MMA Fighting, where it says in the headline, quote, he's going to get exposed. Fans react to Aaron Pico joining the UFC roster. It is bad enough, Ben, folks, when we do the thing where we take a fighter's tweet and we turn that into a story where we say, Khalil Roundtree breaks silence on canceled upcoming fight, and it's like a tweet that he has that's like stay on the grind, right? Like flex emoji. But now we're going to do it with fans, really? We're going to do it with like fan comments on the message board for your website and what they tweeted and shit. Get the fuck out of here, man. Literally no one cares about that.
Well, here's the thing. I get what we're doing. We're trying to foster some engagement, right? We're trying to like get the conversation going in the comments section. We were talking about this when we first became aware of these as an article format that they're doing on MMA Fighting. The comments section on the internet in general just ain't what it used to be. Social media, Reddit, things like that have taken over. Used to be people living entire lives in the comment section, and it's just not happening the same way anymore. But I don't think you're going to bring it back and doing stuff like this. For one thing, I went to look at the comment section of the fans react post because to see if it's working, because that's where you should see it, right? Like if you're trying to get this conversation going, so you would think at least the people whose comments have been highlighted in the article will come around and be like, oh yeah, hey, there I am. And then maybe people will argue with them. And that's kind of the whole idea of what we're going to do there. Now, this story, this particular fans react one about Aaron Pico, this is from 2 days ago, right? It has a total of 8 comments. That's not very many comments, you know? 8 total comments on them. And one of them is Stippenstow, says these fans react articles are the equivalent of pupils having Chat GPT do their homework. The exact opposite to Guillermi's recent quality piece. I think this was the last time I click on one of these. Hear, hear, sir. Hear, hear. I especially appreciate that he juxtaposed it with the Guillermo Cruz did an excellent story on Diego Lopez and all the shit that he went through on his way up and everything. Like, that's the real stuff you should be doing on your website, and instead you're doing like, here's what people said in the comments to a previous story. Like, come on, you guys are better than this.
Yeah,
you're better than this.
That is good that he handed out an example of what you should be doing, because otherwise that could just be like a shit posting, right? But this is a measured criticism by, what did you say his name was?
That is the big homie Stippenstow.
Stippenstow. You love to see it. All right.
Or is Stipe and I don't know.
Does it seem like it's a Stipe reference, maybe?
Stipends. Fuck it.
I saw Stipe on a commercial the other day, and not like the not the Modelo one. I can't remember what it was now, but it was like I was surprised. It was like I was watching a different TV show and there was a commercial with Stipe on it. I was surprised.
AARP? Was it for the AARP?
Benjamin.
Depends.
Number 3 this week, Ben. Patty Pimblett on Michael Chandler. Quote, nicest guy in the world outside the cage, but inside, he's a dirty bastard. Now, he's the nicest man in the world outside the cage. And then when he gets in there, he's a dirty bastard, isn't he? I always say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I understand what he's trying to do. He wants to win. That's the main thing when it comes to this game. That's right.
Trying to win. It's generally, Chad, it's better to win these fights than to lose them.
Trying to win. That's the main thing when it comes to this game.
It is the primary focus.
But yeah, I will probably mention to the ref in the back, if he's going to grab my glove, I'm going to say something. If he tries to poke me in the eye and all that stuff. Keith Peterson catches some strays in here. This is Patty Pimblett talking about Michael Chandler's fight against Charles Oliveira. That one against Charles when he punched him in the back of the head about 9 times or something. I hope that's not my referee, Pimblett said, referencing Keith Peterson. Put it that way. I hope we get a good ref like Mark Goddard or Jason Herzog. I don't want to have a ref that's just going to let me get rabbit punched in the back of my head consistently.
I mean, it is kind of like for one part of me feels like it's a little unfair to Michael Chandler that he gets kind of singled out as the guy who's breaking rules when everybody's trying to get away with what they can get away with. Dustin Poirier seemed like he kind of like stuck that scarlet letter onto Michael Chandler. And, then Michael Chandler's going to go out there, and he did punch the shit out of Charles Oliveira's back of the head. So it's not like he's completely blameless and this unfair criticism is just finding him. But when it becomes such a topic before the fight, and Patty Pimblett says, I'm going to talk to the ref, and it's a storyline heading into the fight, it does make you think that it probably increases the odds that if you do anything against the rules, the chances that you'll actually suffer any sort of consequence, like maybe a point deduction or something, seem like they go up because it's on people's minds.
Has it ever affected John Jones before, though? Because he's sort of the most notorious, it's not like he's dirty. People are like, he is going to poke you in the eye. That is something that he is going to do. So
I also wanted to highlight this quote from the same story on Patty Pimblett, where he's talking about Michael Chandler and the stakes and everything. And he says, the goalposts always get moved with me. Everyone's saying now before the fight, Chandler's going to knock him out. Patty is not good. Then once I beat him, it will be, he's 2-4 in the UFC. He's 38. He's washed. I'm used to it. I get on with it now. I just go out there and prove how good I am by winning. First of all, about what people would say if he beats Chandler, he's not wrong. That's exactly what will happen. If he beats Michael Chandler, that's exactly what people will say. They'll be like, Chandler sucks. Chandler has sucked this whole time. He sucks so bad, even Patty beat him. Like, that's exactly what will happen. Patty is a student of this game.
Yeah. Damn it, Ben, I just saw one of my baseball games got postponed.
Postponed in the GFL sense, or
postponed as in that they're
delay?
No, it is Baltimore and the Blue Jays has been postponed due to rain. They're going to make it up during a doubleheader on July 29th.
Well, Jesus Christ, you're getting on me about money still in play.
I don't think that happens. I think that my bet just gets canceled. I don't think that my $1 bet hangs around until August. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they say. What are we at? Number 2 this week, Ben. Somebody broke into Henry Cejudo's quote unquote studio and stole his first UFC belt. Now, this is a reference to Henry Cejudo's quote unquote podcast studio, I believe. There is a video of it taken by Dylan Rush, who is identified as Cejudo's producer, where, like, as you know, as two guys who record a podcast, when you say studio, you just mean a room at your house.
Yeah, that is what you mean.
And in this
100%
video, it's clear that Henry Cejudo's quote unquote studio is just a room in his house.
Looks like a basement.
Yeah.
Which is actually where I'm recording this too. But here's what I don't get about this.
Is it the guy sleeping there?
Yeah. Someone broke into Henry's studio last night at 4:45 a.m. That's a very specific time, and stole his first UFC belt while I was sleeping on the couch. I woke up and watched the guy stand there for 2 minutes, thinking it was Henry because it was dark. Then I heard a crash, the shelf fell, and the dude ran out. So there's still one belt there.
Yeah.
Somebody broke in, stole one of the belts, left the other one, but also didn't necessarily leave in such a big hurry because he stood there for a couple minutes and just decided to take one of them. What's really going on, Jed? I also like how he pans back and forth.
This is an insurance thing? Henry Cejudo's running a scam on us?
He pans back and forth from the shelf where the belt was to the couch where he was sleeping to give us a sense of, like, where everybody was, and back to the empty shelf.
I was going to say, I don't know Dylan Rush. I don't know who he is, but man, if you are referred to here, identified as quote unquote Henry Cejudo's producer, and you are sleeping on the couch in the room in his home where you record the podcast, I take issue with many of the terms employed in that sentence.
Hey, you don't think Dr. Dre ever slept in the studio when he was producing Tupac's records?
100%. You make a good point. I don't want to sell Dylan short. Perhaps he is the next great podcast producer. I'm just saying, like, podcast producer, or you're the guy who sleeps on Henry Cejudo's couch.
You don't think Quincy Jones ever had him bring in a nicer couch so he'd have some place to stay because he was on his grind in the studio?
I mean, yeah, maybe the reason he's there at 4:45 is that he's up late trying to get the levels right. You know? Maybe we got to
remix this episode of Henry Cejudo talking with his shirt off just right.
Number 1.
And how mad are you going to be? Man, you're sleeping at the goddamn studio and they steal it literally right out from under your fucking nose? Man, help me out a little bit, you know?
Number 1 this week, Ben. Well, here it is. TKO wants to change the Ali Act so they can run on the quote-unquote UFC model. And the longer I watch this video, the worse it gets. So this is, I'm looking at the story on MMA Mania, but this is a video of Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh getting interviewed about this recent partnership, TKO and the Saudis, to start this quote-unquote boxing league. Okay, first of all, the interview is with a person from The Ring magazine,
which is owned by Turki Al-Sheikh.
If you have been paying attention, you will know that Turki Al-Sheikh recently bought The Ring magazine. So you have basically the in-house press talking about how everyone is excited for this, et cetera, et cetera. Starts asking Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh questions. Basically, Dana White says... Dana White actually says in this, Ben, Turki Al-Sheikh has done more to support boxing than every other promoter combined.
Well, okay. He loves combining shit, doesn't he?
Kind of makes Turki Al-Sheikh sound like the power slap of boxing promoters, if we're going to talk about it that way.
Anytime Dana White uses the phrase, then all other blank combined, that should be kind of a red flag.
Yeah.
That's when we're bullshitting.
Dana White says, there's not very many people in the world I would do this with. Wait, in fact, he's the only one. He's the only one in the world that I would do this with. What do you think about Turkey Al Sheik it is that Dana White likes so much?
Money, money, money.
Money, 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 money. That's what my guess is.
That's not bad.
Then they start talking to Turkey Al Sheik about this arrangement. And here's his quote about this new boxing venture with TKO. I trust this league in a very short time will crush everything.
Yeah, man, that's what they're worried about. That's what the Ali Act is partly there to do, is to stop that from happening.
Then the guy from the ring asks Dana White what the format will be for this league. He says there's been a lot of speculation about the format. Dana White says there's zero speculation on the format. You know the format, and everybody knows the format.
Which is?
I believe the format is the promotion is seeking to function like the UFC model by awarding its own TKO belts to the champions of the limited weight classes once the promotion begins staging bouts, likely in 2026. This according to Lance Pugmire. Like the UFC, they want to sign fighters, put them in a league, and provide belts to them, an anonymous source told Pugmire. So we know what the format is. We know what it is. Sign these guys to exclusive, long-term, probably predatory deals, and then just make up your own titles that you control. That's the format.
I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't problems with the sanctioning bodies and how that whole model works in boxing. One of the nice things about it, though, is that they will tell you sometimes, hey, quit fucking around. If you want to be the champion, you need to fight this guy who is the top contender. And if you avoid him because you want some other money fight or you want an easier fight or something like that, then we'll just take the belt away from you. And it is nice to have that not in control of a promoter who we've seen the way the UFC will fuck around with their titles to get what they want. Won't even give you a shot at one if you don't sign the contract they want you to sign. And if you piss them off, they'll just take it away from you. So we've seen how that plays out in the UFC and everything. But to just come out here and be like, yeah, our goal here is to crush all competition. And I'm just like, did you miss last year, just like months ago, when the UFC had to settle that antitrust lawsuit? Like, this is exactly the kind of shit you're accused of doing. And it cost you hundreds of millions of dollars to settle that lawsuit and make it go away. And you still got another one floating around out there. And you're like, we would like to do this in a different sport now, too. Like, that's, I don't know. I guess I thought we would at least bother to be a little more subtle about trying to do that. Instead, we're just coming right out, saying the quiet part out loud.
Maybe he means crush everything like you crush a CrossFit workout, right?
Okay, yeah.
Or like you're playing cornhole and you drop one of the bags into the hole and your partner's like, crushed it, bro, and gives a little fist bump.
I don't think that's what he means, Chad.
You toast with your Pacificos.
I also wonder, maybe I'm not familiar with exactly how the wording of the language is, but like, I get it that, why the Ali Act makes the belts under control of sanctioning bodies and not the promoters. If you really wanted to just skip all that, couldn't you just like be like, we'll give you a trophy that says this is our favorite guy, this is our top guy, and just do something like that? Month. Yeah, you don't have to rewrite the whole fucking law about it,
Oh, I don't think rewriting the whole fucking law is a problem at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
Might as well. This is like everything else in the world right now. You know the bad shit that's going to happen. And then when it happens, you're kind of like, yep, there it is. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
When it pops up on your timeline. There it is. Well, there it is. We're done this week with the co-main event podcast, Patreon Power Hour Power Rankings, and by extension, the Power Hour itself. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate the support. UFC 314 this weekend. Hope it's a hot one. We'll catch you on the flippity flop next week with the proper on Tuesday and then an additional week of Patreon content. You see what I'm wearing? See what I'm wearing, folks?
You are right now in your Grizz spring game mode.
Spring game, baby. 2 hours. A little bit more than 3 hours before we kick off spring game.
And it looks like just exactly the kind of weather we've come to expect of the University of Montana spring game. Seems like you're going to go out there on a cloudy, overcast day, maybe get hit with some freezing rain. Who knows?
I'm going to be dressed in layers.
Of course you are, because you're a professional.
We'll talk to you guys next week. We appreciate the support. Thanks for listening. Right for now, we're done. Bye.